Hello, everyone. We are going to get started in just a few minutes. We are waiting just a few moments longer for the registrants to join us. So just bear with us whilst we wait a few extra moments. Before we get started on what should be a very intriguing and exciting session titled Achieving ROI on Hotel Wellness, and what does it take? Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Roger Allen, Group CEO of Resources for Leisure Assets. I would like to welcome you to the International Luxury Hotel Association's webinar on achieving return on investment on hotel wellness. What does it take? This will be moderated by myself with the panelists that I have great pleasure in introducing to you. We have Susie Ellis, Chairman and CEO from the Global Wellness Institute. We have Andrew Gibson, Chairman, Wellness Tourism Association. Ella Kent, Director of Rooms, Sea Island Resort. And last but not least, we have Thomas Klein, owner and hospitality consultant from TAC Hospitality. Today's webinar is brought to you by AT Cross Company, and I would like to introduce you to Sharon Boutain, who will briefly tell us about their product.
Thank you, Roger. So I am very pleased to be in your company today. Luxury hotels have always been a lovely part of my business life. And so it's a pleasure to be in your company and to speak to those who are responsible for keeping others happy and healthy while offering their hospitality. We can go to the next slide if you would, please. Thank you. I just want to tell you a little bit about our brand so that you know, those of you who have not held a Cross pen before or a Schaefer pen, you need to know that this is a well-crafted pen that is really completely appropriate for today's environment. We have been marketing hashtag carry your own pen for all the reasons that you know. It's obvious that we really should, for our personal accessories, have our own as opposed to borrowing others. Not only that, but in this period of COVID, when we are traveling less, unfortunately, and staying at home more, and we do need to write more. Writing is something that is good for the human soul, that helps us connect when we are physically apart. And even journaling, for instance, can be a very effective way to concentrate and relieve stress. So you want to do that with a quality writing instrument. We can go to the next one. The brand, for those of you who have not met Cross, you should know that it's a very authentic writing instrument brand. It's a 175-year-old American company, founded by a family. There are still family members in the business 175 years ago. And now we are our biggest markets, just for your relevance, are the US, Northern Europe, the UK, France, Spain, and Japan. But we are indeed a global business. What's interesting with Cross pens is that they are very sustainable. There are 150 billion plastic pens thrown away every year, which is a little bit mind-boggling. But when you own a Cross writing instrument, it is something that you keep for a lifetime. They have a lifetime warranty, and you just simply use a refill and you keep the pen forever. It's one of those things you can pass on to others in your family or in your friends. So as a hotel gift, it makes a lot of sense because you want people to take a memory with them. I know personally I have quite a few hotel pens in my collection. And here's a couple. This particular slide that came up just now is showing you, whoops, sorry, can you go back? We're going a little too fast. This one shows some examples of when it is appropriate for a hotel to use a gift like cross pens. Obviously, for your VIPs when they check in, as a pillow gift for special events, when you have conferences and whatever in your hotel and in your gift shops. We are very happy to personalize them with the kind of decor you see here, or even little emblems on the clip. And of course, the more you order, the better the price. But it is a good addition to a guest experience, especially these days when we want to stay safe. Now we can go to the slide. Thank you. So this slide kind of speaks for itself. There are very few things we truly need every day when you leave the house. You need your keys, you need your mask, you need your license, and you should have your writing instrument. So when this is a gift, whether it be for employees or for guests, you are sending a double message. One, it's a legacy item that lasts a lifetime, truly lasts a lifetime. And secondly, you are honoring the fact that they need to be careful with their personal health, which of course we're going to hear much more about today. So that's the cross story, and we look forward to hearing from you. Our addresses are part of this webinar, and we'd be happy to talk with you and encourage how we can use those kinds of gifts in a meaningful way for your properties. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you for sharing the details on the cross pen that I myself actually enjoy using. So let's get started with today's discussion on achieving ROI on hotel wellness. What does it take? It's an unprecedented period that we really are going through that carries with it so much uncertainty. We have a stressed economy. We have a public health crisis. Dare we say elections are looming in the US. No more mention of elections. However, people are tending to reevaluate their priorities and focus on their health and quality of life. And so with that, what within hotel wellness is certain that we can take great confidence in looking forward? Maybe if I can put that question to you first, Susie, if you could kick us off. What are your thoughts there?
Well, when I think about achieving ROI in wellness, what it takes, I think it's helpful for people to understand wellness. So I brought just a few slides, and if we can just show the first one, I think that will help answer some of the questions that will come up today. This is a good overall picture of the global wellness economy, which has been estimated at 4.5 trillion by the Global Wellness Institute. And these bubbles, it's called the bubble chart internally, are the size of these sectors. So wellness is more than just what some people think of in a hotel, maybe being the spa or the fitness component, but wellness is broader. You can see the largest bubble is actually the beauty bubble, beauty and anti-aging over a trillion actually. Physical activity is a large bubble. Wellness tourism, that is an important bubble that we've been measuring for quite a few years, and that's important for the luxury market. Healthy eating and nutrition, traditional complementary medicine, and then you can see there's the spa economy, thermal mineral springs, workplace wellness, and wellness real estate. So all in all, that is a large number, which is why so many people are paying attention to it. And by the way, we are birthing a new bubble in just a month at our upcoming Global Wellness Summit, and that will be mental wellness, because that's what we're finding certainly is a big issue. So that'll be enough for the slides for now. I just wanted to give that sort of as a context. And I think that what we're seeing internally at the Global Wellness Institute is there is more interest now in wellness than ever. And so we are very optimistic that actually there's going to be more, there's more travel coming back that will be in the wellness sector than even in travel in general. So we're very bullish on wellness, and I know that, Thierry Mallerit and Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum, they just wrote a book called The Big Reset. They mentioned 3 categories or sectors that are going to benefit from COVID, and that is technology, health, and wellness. And so I think it's great for the luxury hotel and resort arena to be looking at wellness. And there's a lot of opportunity to improve ROI, I think.
Andrew, would you add to that on what you see as certain in an uncertain environment?
Well, I think we're in an uncertain environment, so certainty is very difficult to predict. But I would say that one thing that encourages me a great deal right now is that we're starting to, with this emphasis on wellness, we're starting to measure what the ROI is, and we're actually starting to think about it. And up until now, the data is very poor on the ROI of wellness. And I think if you actually start to look at the statistics and how we measure it, the change in data will come in. And I know we're going to come to that later. The other thing I wanted to, and we'll talk more about that as we progress through this webinar. But the other thing that Susie's beautiful bubble chart of all the different aspects of wellness that are in different buckets, I think you can think of that in hospitality as well. Currently, we're very much into the bucket of the activities that take place in the hotel and consider that to be the wellness. Well, that's only one bubble if you think about it. Another bubble will be the complete design of the hotel. How do you design the hotel, and how do you have technology and wellness features that permeate through the entire design of the hotel, and what ROI does that generate? And then the third aspect that I can think of straight away is the wellness of the employees, and how does that contribute to the ROI of the hospitality and the hotel? So those are the different bubbles I can think of, actually, if you want to sort of micro it into the hotel itself.
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Andrew raised some very good points, and it'll be interesting to see Susie's bubble chart for 2020 when that comes out later next year or early 22, because I think you'll see a dramatic shift in some of those bubbles and how they move. But clearly, wellness has moved to the forefront. And, I'm even talking to some folks out there in the industry. I used to have a chief human resource officer. They're talking now about, do we have a chief wellness officer? Because wellness is really evolving into a space, where it truly is at the forefront of the hospitality industry. And, and how do we really integrate that in a meaningful way into the operating model and the P&L sheet? As Andrew rightfully said, I mean, historically, we used to say, where do we put the spa? Where do we put the fitness? It doesn't need a view. It doesn't need to be in AAA pieces of the real estate of the resort. You really need to understand the benefits of wellness and how that drives the bottom line, and how is that integrated into that guest journey and experience. So I know we're going to get into quite a few of these things throughout this webinar, which is really quite exciting. And just let me say I'm honored to be part of it, with the panel and the discussion that we'll have here over the next hour plus. So thank you.
Super. Ella, do you have anything to add to what you see as being certain moving forward?
Just briefly, it's funny with this birthing of the new mental wellness bubble. One of the key findings in iSpa's spa goer survey back when we were back in lockdown was that people were paying as much attention to their mental health as they were their physical health. We've not seen that before. And so it gave people time and space to actually broaden what they do in their day, and that's become a key piece. So I'm excited.
Staying with you, Ella, particularly from an operational point of view, because you are hands-on operations, which must be incredibly tough in this current climate. But I mean, what are you seeing? For most luxury hotels, the majority of wellness programs reside in the spa and fitness centers. So, what is the current state of the resort spa industry, and particularly the mid and long range challenges and opportunities? I mean, that's quite a loaded question, so I apologize in advance.
I'll give it a brief stab. A lot of it has to do with location, location, location. And so we're blessed to be at a seaside resort that has been very, very busy, unexpectedly so, which has its own kinds of challenges that I think we finally worked through, and it feels great. But even so, we're not at full capacity in our spas, nor in our fitness centers. And there are physical reasons for that because of physical distancing. But more than that, what we're finding that our spas are telling us, and this is from the International Spa Association, actually talks to spa operators, fitness operators in the hotels. And what they're telling us is that they're running at about 65% or less capacity. And what's astounding for me, and that is not because of physical distancing, not because of a lack of guests for many, but it's because of a lack of spa therapists. In particular, massage therapists are very wary of working in this particular environment, and it's been a slow win. We already had this personnel challenge in touch therapy, and it's only broadened in this environment. And so it's really interesting. People who want to travel want to spa. Our spas, our fitness centers are the busiest activities that we have going on right now. However, we can't staff them where we need to be to make the money that we need to do. And so that's going to continue to be a challenge for us in the future. And I'll have more to say about that in a minute because I have some thoughts.
I'm sure in most of your planning right now is short, mid. I mean, surely you cannot be planning long term. I mean, it's interesting. There's been so much talk about post-COVID, and we're nowhere near post-COVID right now. We're in the COVID era. So how are you handling that long range planning?
Well, right now, our booking window has shrunk from 3 months to 5 days. And so that's our reality. We don't know. We have finally learned to overstaff because people are coming. And so we are planning on 2021 being that transition year. And that's what you're seeing most hoteliers do. And so we're not spending any money. And I can talk more about what we can spend money on, but we're looking for more that low-hanging fruit that I'll talk about later. But we need to, how to maximize what we have now. We're not building new infrastructure. So how do we harvest what we already are gifted with?
Susie, I mean, what findings do you have at the Institute of Research that may be helpful information for really the hospitality and industry experts, particularly in this new reality?
Well, I think as Tom pointed out, the bubbles are going to shrink in some cases, and in one case in particular, it's growing. And as Ella said, mental wellness is something that's very important. So I think that there's a shift, but interestingly enough, the shifts that we're seeing are accelerated by COVID, but we really saw them to begin with. The one thing I will mention is wellness real estate. People are interested in living in places where there is a healthy environment. There are resorts and hotels that have residences, and I think there's definitely some robustness there. We have talked with a lot of people globally, and those who have residences where wellness is a huge component, their phones are ringing. So that is a bubble that I expect will increase greatly. The wellness tourism, I mean, travel, obviously, it's, we're hearing globally that there's some, domestic travel happening. And I think maybe, Ella, you're benefiting from that. I don't know, but I imagine that you have a lot of people driving to your location, and being on the ocean, of course, is great. So I think the domestic piece. One other thing we're seeing, because we also study trends, is the idea of, the digital nomad, people wanting to work in places where they're traveling. The wellness sabbatical is something we introduced a while back. And I think this would be an exciting opportunity for hotel and resorts to encourage longer stays, for people to be at the place longer. And yes, they might be working part-time, wellness. They can work on their wellness regimes, and they can, have an enjoyable place to be. So I think immunity, we're seeing there's interest in immunity. Nature is huge. Anything to do with nature is very, very attractive. So I think, like Ella said, without spending a lot of money, there can be a shift to some of the things that we know that the wellness consumer is really interested in.
Moving gears slightly now as we start to move into trying to understand what is that low-hanging fruit. I think Ella, there was just taking Ella's cue there, because in this environment there's a lot of cost controlling going on, justifiably so. But what are some of the creative, innovative initiatives that can work and that you're seeing in the industry that actually drives revenues and, more importantly, profit? Tom, what are you seeing?
No, look, and it's interesting. I was in the Bay Area a couple of weeks ago, and we had this very discussion. How do you, because this has now become such a low touch market, wellness. It was very high touch before, but how do you still provide that experience? And some of the things that we've seen that I've certainly seen that is working out there, particularly in some of the city hotels where we have meeting platform and things like that, converting some of the meeting space into, whether it's yoga studios or other other unutilized real estate within the hotel that can be revenue generating. One has to take a broader view, and this is where leadership really comes into play, to think a little bit outside the box and really go into resources, such as the folks on this call here today, and to really understand what drives revenue. Because what we're finding and seeing is, if you authentically start to promote wellness and that spa experience and authentically deliver on that, under promise and over deliver, you will not only drive incremental revenue to the rooms, but you'll drive it to other areas of the hotel/resort as well. So I think, I was on a call this morning actually with Susie, we were talking about, what are some of the things that, are really taking off, whether you start talking about some of the halo therapy, VEMI, the infrared therapy, some of those things that still give that spiritual, mental, emotional experience. There's a high burnout out there, and mental wellness is really critically important. Sound therapy, things like that can be done one-on-one, that are very low touch. Yes, they may require an investment, but I think that with the market, and this is not a short-term period, I don't have the crystal ball like anybody else, but I think we're in a period of, who really knows, but I personally believe this is 12, 18, 24 months, and it's going to be something that's probably going to stay with us for some time, whether it's wearing masks or not. But we need to adapt the operating model to be sensitive to that. So some of the technology and some of the pieces of equipment that are coming out there are low touch, but are quite healing and very therapeutic on many different levels. So, those are the things that we're talking about. And the industry, I think, as a whole is recognizing it, that they have to shift their marketing strategies and then the operating models to be able to execute and deliver on that.
But when we're talking about operating models, we're talking specifically to the hotel brands here.
Yes. Yeah, we no question, Roger. We are talking to the brands, and I was talking to a franchise group, a smaller franchise owner, limited service. They were saying, how do we instill some level of wellness within our hotels? Look, at the basic thing is standards of cleanliness, hygiene. Really making sure that the protocols are truly being adhered to 100%. God forbid, that one of the brands gets some negative media out there that they're not complying with the brands. That's not a good formula for getting ROI. But no question, yeah.
But don't you think there has been maybe some naivety in how wellness is adapted into many of the hotels and resorts in the sense it's a case of taking, I'm definitely coming to you, Andrew, of definitely taking wellness and putting it into the property without understanding what concept of wellness, what is the proposition for that specific profile of guests within that specific property.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Well, I think, I mean, Tom's hit the nail on the head, and I'll just expand a little bit on that. And we're talking about hotels because they have a different business model to destination spas or resort wellness or what. And that is ultimately what is being sold. And it comes back again to, if you measure something, it gets done. And we're not measuring. And some general managers might say, well, you know, it's a third party operator, so it's not our business and it doesn't affect us. Well, in my experience with all the hotel groups I've worked with, the top spenders in my hotels are the people that use the wellness facilities. And those people spend double on their food and beverage. They stay a day and a half longer. They're 33% more likely to take suites. So their average spend is almost double that of somebody that doesn't use those facilities. Now, to Tom and Susie's point, I actually think we've got immense creative talent out there with our wellness directors and our spa directors itching to do things and are prevented because the entire systemic model is not in their favor. And the reason I say that is you have OTAs that are only interested in selling rooms. Give me 4 pictures of your rooms, maybe throw in a picture of the swimming pool, and we'll sell the room. And they don't sell any of the other assets that the hotel has got. Now, there are new companies like VacayU, Wellbeing Escapes, Healing Hotels that only specialize on wellness packages. And I see them growing tremendously over the next 12 months to a year, 2 years, because they are looking at the complete package. But if you want to sell the complete package, you need to then think about TrevPAR and actually change from just measuring the performance based on the room's revenue. You need to become, your general managers, if they become asset managers and they manage the entire thing, now they will use that creativity to sell the entire assets that the hotel's got. And plus, I've seen general managers open up car parking lots as walk-in, drive-in movie theaters and using the food and beverage. There's so much creativity out there. But if your general manager only thinks along the lines of, oh, well, I'm just interested in the rooms and the food and beverage is outsourced, the spa's outsourced, it's nothing to do with me, then I think they're losing a golden opportunity. And that stems not only from the way we measure and perform, but it also stems from the way we sell.
Thank you, Andrew. I do agree with you. And I think there are tools there that can help create transparency in the wellness performance. And I think we're going to come on to that a little bit later on in the discussion. But what is your opinion there, Ella, seeing it from an operational point of view and, you know, seeing those incremental revenue and particularly the profitability from an operational point of view? I mean, are you seeing, you know, that return on all of the efforts in the spas and the wellness, or are you seeing some of it being lost into other departments? I always kind of say within the hotel P&L, you often see, you know, Peter robbing from Paul, you know.
Don't get me started on that one.
Well, right now, Peter's really, really busy, and we need Paul and his friend Simon and everybody else to perform, right? To meet our bottom line. And what's exciting in this space for luxury hotels is that we've seen a shift in who's coming to see us. And typically, in the old days, we marketed to the 60 plus people, and wellness was very passive. You were, you know, you went to the spa and you got a fluff and buff and that was it. What we're seeing now is more of our demographic has shifted to the 45 to 60-year-old, and these are vibrant people in the middle of their careers who are looking for an adrenaline rush. They're looking for things outside the spa. They want activities that speak to nature. They want to rock climb. They want to fish. And what's really cool is many of them have children at home. They travel with their children and they want to not sit by the pool and watch the kids frolic about. They want to be outside doing skeet shooting with their kids. They want to be outside running on the beach and doing activities. So we need to shift our mind from the old set where you just go and get rubbed and dubbed in a spa and now you're well, to what is the entire resort able to focus on. And that's an exciting thing, especially for those of us who have lots of real estate, who are indeed very much benefiting from the current COVID focus. And so what you need, I think, as a hotel is to look at is how can you best meet the needs of those people in that demographic. That's your future, and not only that, it's your present right now. And people who do that successfully will, by nature, have wellness because we've got so many assets. And I think I'll talk to that in a minute. But we are siloed in our hotels, and to our great detriment, we don't give that holistic picture of what can happen, what lives can be changed when you come to visit us. And that's an exciting opportunity for the future.
Right, and if I
Roger, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, if I can just jump in on what Alice said, one of the big and most, I think, critically important components of this shift in selling hotel or resort destination is the education piece. You know, when we start talking about wellness, we're getting much deeper into the whether it's an integrated wellness resort or destination style like Canyon Ranch, which understands it, but we're now bringing it into space where on many different levels, it's coming into uncharted territory. So we need to make sure that we educate our sales and marketing people, our operating people, to make sure that they do understand the value add in selling that destination and making sure that we're giving the wellness piece the credibility that it rightfully deserves in what's becoming a very critical, important piece of a consumer choosing their destination to go, whether it's on business or leisure.
Andrew?
Yeah, I was just going to back up what Ella was saying in terms of the shift in nature of people visiting, because that's a global phenomenon. It's not just in the US. And it is actually consistent with the findings of the Global Wellness Institute and the Wellness Tourism Association's research in looking at people do want not only to connect with nature, but to connect with family. And so I think that that's a very strong set of motives and a strong area where you can market to.
I guess there is a challenge because with a lot of the examples of marketing strategies and the activities and initiatives that have been spoken about, and Ella touched on a number, I guess the blurring of the lines of where wellness is being offered is going to increase in the hotel environment, particularly, and I know we're going to talk about technology, we're talking about, you know, quality of air and in-room wellness, et cetera. But we've got healthy eating, you know, we've got wellness in the restaurant. So, you know, how do you measure that? Because you're not counting necessarily a massage in the spa, so to speak. So the quantification of the wellness proposition becomes increasingly more complicated within the traditional, you know, hotel P&L, let's say. I mean, that's something that has to be addressed.
Yes.
Well, I think I'll give a slight analogy to that. You think back to the early 2000s, where everything was about sustainability, and we didn't really have adequate reporting tools to measure the sustainability measures that hotels were taking. And then you've got the birth of Green Globe and EarthCheck and Global Reporting Initiative, and now you have standards. And then we moved into LEED certification, and LEED is now a standard that measures sustainability in hotels. It actually measures energy efficiency more accurately, but nevertheless, we digress a little bit. Now, where have we moved? We've got the well-being building standards that have been introduced and have become a standard. And I think we will have more metrics coming out now that I've seen Smith Travel and Hotstats sort of broadening their horizon in the data that we should be collecting. I think there is an opportunity to have a broader scope of measuring the wellness ROI. And there's a lot of work to do on that, because it isn't, we're still at measuring we haven't even accurately measured the activities part of it. Forget about all of the design part of it or the wellness to the employees and what that generates in terms of ROI. We're still very much focused on the activities part of it. And we need to broaden that to look at a much wider spectrum of what is the true ROI of wellness in hotels.
You know,
Well, go ahead, Susie.
I wanted to mention, it would be so fantastic if there was a measurement, but I'm also recognizing that that may not happen. And I remember it happening with employee wellness. For the longest time, you know, all the CFOs wanted to see a return on, if you're going to invest in employee wellness, are my healthcare costs going to go down? Where is the ROI? And you know what ended up happening is that they're not asking that anymore. And it's not because they have the numbers. It's because, to Tom's point, education, people realize that, you know what, if my employees are healthy and I don't have to, and they stay with me and I don't have to replace them so often, that's saving me money. Because the measurement of, you know, the lower costs in healthcare, I mean, that's, you know, years and years and years away. One example is the Breakers in Palm Beach, and they don't have a specific measurement for wellness, but they have invested millions of dollars in wellness, and they have seen not only their healthcare costs go down, but their turnover rates are much, you know, much lower, and they have seen so much return from employees. And so the education of the fact that their employees are so steeped in a wellness culture has I think, convinced everyone there, management included, that it has been a hugely profitable investment. But I don't see the actual numbers being invested, being analyzed. But I don't see a lot of CFOs saying, well, show me the numbers before I think wellness is important. I think they...
To that point, Susie, if you look now at the number of countries that have got happiness index as a replacement or alongside GDR, so there is a movement, and there is a strong movement, and I see actually different movements in different wellnesses. So while we might not have an overall sort of standard to measure the ROI, there is movement in all the different little subdivisions that are happening.
Do you remember?
No, go ahead, Susie.
Andrew probably remembers, you know, wellness tourism, the term, we introduced it in 2013. That's just 7 years ago in Delhi when we had our Global Wellness Summit there. And before that, there were just a few countries, India happened to be one of them, where they even thought about wellness tourism. Because medical tourism was a little bit more well known. But in that amount of time, and this is what I find encouraging, now there's a lot of people talking about wellness tourism. And I think that that's the momentum we're seeing in wellness for employees and wellness for beyond the walls of the spa and fitness. So that's the part that's encouraging. But I don't know if there'll ever be a way to really measure it, ROI. Maybe that's a fantasy that won't happen. I don't know.
I think from, you know, our experience at RLA, I think the measurement starts in the planning. And more often than not, what we have seen is a lot of wellness components within the real estate have looked great from the design point of view, but the performance indications have not been carried through with proper IRR calculations, or the very top line orientated, or have just been generally gobbled up by the traditional hotel P&L, which, you know, to a certain extent, you know, with undistributed operating expenses, you know, that can actually disperse a lot of the true operating costs. So you don't see a true IRR. And so at the time of planning wellness, you need to have in place a proper investment plan that measures all of the activities and the investments, just like you was investing into any other form of business. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, and so you don't have a measuring tool in place when these spas actually open, unfortunately. And so everybody's begging the question of, you know, what is the IRR, when, you know, nobody really knows, because it hasn't been measured from the beginning. Tom, is that something that you've seen quite often?
Yeah, look, with my years with Canyon Ranch, obviously we measured everything. There wasn't anything really that we didn't measure. But you know, one has to keep in mind, again, that was a destination wellness resort, so that's unique and cannot be used as a barometer, you know, for the industry as a whole. But What I can tell you is I do believe you'll start to see some metrics out there. Who will manage it? Will it be SDR or some of the others? Probably so. But I think, you know, if you take a look, even if you look at, Roger, your own RLA real estate report that you put out, which I thought was really well done. You know, when I go back to real estate and when we opened up the Carillon, for example, down in Miami many years ago, around 2007 and 8, before the debacle, we can clearly quantify the value of real estate on a per square foot basis as it related to the marketplace. And we were driving per square foot sales of about 35 to 40% premium by virtue of fact that there was an immersive wellness experience associated with the condo owners that invested there. You know, and that model has been used for a number of years, and you know, there's still, it's easier to quantify, to your point, planning processes early on, because you do have benchmarks out there. But you know, for the industry, the hospitality industry, again, I think, as Andrew said earlier on, you can see the RevPAR at that 30 to 35% incremental. And we really, when we're talking about ROI, it's incremental. What are we driving to the top? And more importantly, what is actually flowing to the bottom? And then how do you quantify and measure that? You know, we are in that space where it's difficult, but I think you can certainly measure spa treatments, how they're growing. You can certainly measure some of the incremental services, but am I coming there, you know, because I'm adding another 2 or 3 people to a yoga class where the fixed cost is already embedded in there, but I'm going to stay there. And now I'm driving incremental rooms revenue, food and beverage revenue, and all the other revenue centers that, you know, I referenced a little bit earlier on. But I think we're going to get more sophisticated in the industry. Why? Because many of the management companies have owners that want answers to those questions. And we're going to have to be able to quantify that versus some of the soft responses that we're getting, that we're hearing today, because they can't. We just don't have the tools at the moment, but they will come. And we had like 250 different services at the time at Kenway, you know, and you have to measure all those and understand how that business model works. So it's there. It just needs to become more sophisticated and available.
Yeah. Just for all the viewers, the RLA Wellness Real Estate Report can be downloaded. It is complimentary, and you can get that at wellnessrealestatereport.com, where we tried to look at that key data of, dare I say, ADR, because I know that's what really detracts from wellness performance a lot of the time. But you know, when you start to get into TrevPOR, TrevPAR, GOPAR, GOP, and total operating profit conversion to rationalize performance, you really start getting into the nitty-gritty of understanding, I would say, how wellness, and particularly the size of wellness, or the influence that wellness has on the performance. And that's what we've tried to do in that report. And I think as a detraction from understanding wellness IRR has been the traditional hotel focus on ADR and RevPAR. And, you know, that detracts from the wellness department. And that's traditionally been the dominant KPI. So, I mean, what can we do as an industry, as in a sector, to bring more focus to TrevPAR, TrevPOR, and other metrics where wellness actually is having a massive influence? And going back to a lot of the activities that Ella, you know, said right in the beginning. Andrew?
I remember at one of the wellness summits meeting an architect who was talking to me about how to change something, and he used the analogy of a super tanker. A super tanker can't turn a tight corner, so how do you get it to change? Just little movements with a little rudder, that just those little movements like that eventually make the big ship turn. And so, coming back to your point, what I've seen, which is encouraging, is that when you do see companies like STR and Hotstats publishing articles, and Hotstats have published 2 articles this month alone mentioning the importance of TRevPAR. When you see that happening, you'll start to get more focus on it. But there is another aspect, and it comes back to the incremental revenues and the profit margin, because it's not particularly necessarily in the interests of operating companies to measure TRevPAR, because of the if you're measuring rooms, the profit margin is so much higher than the other departments. So it may not be in your interest, but it's certainly in the interests of the owner. And as Tom says, the owner is going to be asking questions that have to be answered. So I'm optimistic. I'm seeing more and more movement towards it. I don't anticipate it's going to be a swift change, but I do believe there are more and more managers out there that are no longer room sellers. They're actually asset managers of the entire property and managing the entire property. And when that happens, then you'll see that shift.
Yeah, and if I can just add to what Andrew just said, I think the first and the simplest thing to do today is to have a separate page or 2 on the P&L that is dedicated to the spa/wellness area.
Yes.
And whoever that manager is or that leader is in that department, he or she truly needs to understand where is the revenue coming from and what are the expenses associated to that revenue. And I think you'll start to have a bit of a mind shift change relative to how that department is seen, and then he or she needs to report on that, to the resort hotel general manager or whatever it might be, financial controller. Once you start,
and sorry.
Yeah, it's all about accountability in that specific area. It's not just, it's just the spa, just the giveaway. Salespeople, just a free spa treatment. It doesn't quite work that way.
And talking of accountability, so as I said, what gets measured gets done. So those kind of data I was given earlier about the extra spend in the other departments that somebody that uses the wellness services spends, that's not difficult for you to measure yourself. You can look at your marketing data, you can look at your guest profiles, and you can see for yourself. But so few actually do that. But if you actually looked into that and said, wow, yeah, actually, you know what? The guests that use the wellness facilities are spending double on their food and beverage. Maybe we should give a little bit more focus on our wellness services and attract them in there, even if it is a third-party operator. So I see it. I'm optimistic. I see it shifting. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I'm a very patient person. I've also been in the spa, in the hotel, so I've had to bang this drum for a very long time, but I am encouraged by what I'm seeing.
Well, at the end of the day, money talks, right? It's about how much we flow.
Absolutely.
And spas have become very sophisticated in this, especially your luxury resort hotels like the Broadmoor and the Sea Island, where I happen to be from, and we provide almost 50% profit. That is attention getting, even without understanding how much longer they stay in the hotel. And all of us in most of our top tiers, we do keep track of incremental spend, and whether it be coming from our cottages or from our suites or from our cheaper garden suites or our things that are on the beach. We do measure that, and that speaks, and your more enlightened CEOs know that, and that's exciting. But can I talk about my low-hanging fruit at some point?
Ella, let's talk about the low-hanging fruit.
It's just because right now it's in 2021 already, right? Effectively, how are we going to bring more money to the bottom line? Well, we've got some exciting things that we can do, and I think the first thing that you can do in your hotels is to get your fitness people and your spa people talking and making some real connections with each other, because you're going to have a spa person who encounters this golfer with a frozen up shoulder, and you've got this trainer who's been working with them at the Golf Performance Center, and they know exactly what's going on with their body. And if they're not talking, it's not making a difference. And so often we're really, really siloed. So until you get one person in charge of both who enforces that talk, and then you change your marketing around that, and you're not just a spa and you're a fitness center, but you're a well-being or a lifestyle enhancement or something like that. Get out of that spa box and don't pigeonhole yourself, and get your assets who are already there talking. And so that's a marketing piece, and that's an education piece like Tom was talking about earlier. The second thing is explore some partnerships. None of us want to bring on more employees right now. But we do have assets in our community because the service industry has been hit hard. In particular, there are nutritionists out there, and we neglect the nutrition piece right now. And a lot of people are at home having to cook for themselves, and they don't have a clue. And they're more concerned about their well-being and their physical being, and that is directly related to what you put in your mouth. So find some nutritionists in your area, put them on a contract, and then start offering some education to your people who are coming to the spa. A second, when there are nurses out there who are just tired of the entire thing, and there are medical spas that are out there that are hurting. So why not form a partnership with medical spas? You know, what we're seeing is people really like infusion therapy. I'm not just talking about Botox and collagen and all of that. I'm talking about B12, vitamin D, hangover fluids, immunity fluids. That is huge. Think about a group where you could actually hook them up. You know, whether or not you agree with it, it's out there, and people want that kind of performance. That's the kind that our guests are telling us right now. So that's a partnership. Again, it doesn't have to be someone you bring on. It can be a contractor. And then you can bring fitness outside. Even if you are in an urban area, you've got parks nearby. There are people out there who are private personal trainers who don't have work right now. They can lead stuff. They can have all kinds of team building and classes outside. You don't have to hire them. You can partner with them, and then you can grow into that if the demand is there. And then a small piece on retail, because our luxury resorts do a really bad job of selling retail, and only about 90% of, only about 10% of us in this market actually sell to digital space. What's exploded in the last 6 months? Digital sales, digital retail sales. And spas have an advantage because, number one, we have a relationship with our customers, and we can tell them how to use things in a way that's respected. And number two, we carry brands that most stores and Amazon doesn't carry. So we already have that space, and we're just leaving it on the table because most of us don't do web marketing. Most of us don't do social marketing on social channels, and that's been huge. And most of us don't have online and then pick up at the door. Those things are going to drive sales. They're doing it right now, and none of those are going to cost you much money. They just cost some real deep thinking with your players to get together and figure out how to execute this and execute it quickly. I'm done.
So many great ideas there, Ella. I mean, they really were. Thank you. Do you think, I mean, the spa director, wellness director really would need, you know, a partner in sales and marketing to drive many of those? Are we starting to see changes there where, you know, the marketing and sales department are not just looking at the property as a whole and rooms, but they're looking at the wellness component, particularly if it's significant, and thinking, okay, it requires, like you just mentioned, you know, digital sales for retail. You know, that's something very difficult that the spa director can possibly do on their own because of, you know, the technological requirement.
Yeah, but it requires people to realize that the number one goal right now is to get guests in your hotel and get the guests that are in your hotel spending more money. That is it. Those are the two things. And so when you can look at why they come, why you want them to come, and what they're doing when they're there, and you can figure out how to get everybody in that resort or everybody in that luxury hotel on the same sheet of music, then you're going to make progress. And really, if you can just sit down 3 or 4 hours with your marketing folks and you tell them kind of the direction you want to go, they'll give it to you. They're looking for a good story. We're all looking for it. And this is the good story.
Yeah, and I would even insist, instead of telling them, make sure they experience it. Have them go through the experience, because then you'll get the emotional connection to the selling process there. But
Exactly
that's
right.
a point, Ella.
I just wanted to add that in terms of virtual, it wouldn't be just retail, it's services also that I think that we're, you know, I think fitness did a really good job, you know, right away when COVID happened. Spa and wellness is a little bit slower, but I'm seeing more and more of that. There's opportunity there also. And to Roger, your point, to all of our points, I think, is that I think that even if wellness or spa is a small part of a hotel, I think it's an advantage to have that person at the table of the management discussions, because now that it should not just stay in those walls. it can be brought into the entire arena. And I think there can be a lot of value in that.
Yeah, and I think if you, some of the bigger brands, sorry, Rod, some of the bigger, Core Fairmont, for example, just launched their new wellness, in-room wellness program, where they're giving, you know, when you get in the guest room and you've got your wellness channel and they give you yoga classes, nutrition classes, they brought the wellness into the guest room. And, you know, they've made a significant investment in partnering, to Ella's point, with the right practitioners that are then providing you that wellness experience while you're staying with them.
So I'm trying to multitask here, and I know it doesn't work. I can just about chew gum and walk in a straight line. So yeah, I was just responding to a question there. I thought you were going to speak for a little bit longer, Tom.
No, I can. If you want to answer that question, I mean, I was on a call actually with Susie this morning. You know, we were talking about, you know, getting an ROI, you know, in that wellness experience. And the young lady from the Carillon happened to be on, you know, but you know, again, that's a bigger spa / wellness operation, but they're investing about $350,000 this year. And she had the right answers, because the question came up on, you know, what's the ROI on that? And they've analyzed that, and they put that they will drive in this year, 2020, at $200,000 in revenue. So her return on that investment, they're looking at 18, 24 months or things like that. But you know, if you have a long-term view, which I think wellness is here to stay for the long term and only grow, you know, and you're prepared to make, no, I'm not suggesting for a moment that everybody needs to make that level of investment, but maybe it's a piece here or there that's low touch. It's technology integrated, you know, whether you start talking, you know, some of the things she was mentioning was Russia, the sound therapy. People really want to relax and unwind. There's so much stress right now in the world. What can you provide the guests to reduce that stress level in their day-to-day lives? I think you'll win, no matter, it doesn't have to be overly, it doesn't need to be a high capital cost. It can be something is in-room yoga, in-room meditation, things like that really work, and the consumer is craving for today at some authentic level.
And Tom, that's something that the talent in our hotels have. We just haven't made the connection. We haven't thought outside the spa to say, how can I provide training for a facial, a do-it-yourself? How can I provide a closure to the day meditation that our own experts in yoga at the fitness center provide? And so that's what's missing, is that connection and making it happen, thinking outside your traditional roles.
Yeah.
I think we've got to touch on technology, because during the COVID period, I mean, it's been quite phenomenal, the amount of transactions and the amount of technology that has really pushed wellness front and center. And Susie, what have you seen that you really think that is really going to change hospitality and bring wellness as an even more advantage to these propositions?
You know, I think that technology, you know, I mentioned technology, health, and wellness, those three. But technology, and at our upcoming summit, we're going to have a technology pavilion. And interestingly enough, when I think about, you know, who our sponsors are, technology is huge, because there's so many startups, there's so many people trying and introducing things that are set up to help people, whether it's in a treatment or whether it's, you know, virtually through, you know, the Fitbit type of thing. And it's just not just wellness, but medical technology. I think that we can't lose by following and doing more in that space. And we're making it up as we go along. But like I have seen, there's some people doing really well. For example, I heard of one gal who put together a do-it-yourself facial at home, but you had to buy the products. So you get the products shipped to you, and then you use the products. And, you know, so she's able to have 30 people on a call, and they each invested $69 in her box. You know, that's just an example, but we all have to be creative and try different things. It's the beginning of technology and wellness. I think there's just, the sky's the limit.
Andrew?
So I think technology is permeating every single aspect of it. So from the obvious of being able to sell online services to the activities that take place and the way that we've got things such as cryotherapy or IVs now with different vitamins that are injected. I think virtual reality is going to have a tremendous impact. I mean, it might be working on mental health, it might be working on relaxation, we don't know, but I can see virtual reality having a massive impact in wellness as it's already infiltrating so many other industries. And then the other thing is technology in the guest rooms and in the hotel itself. And so I see it permeating every area. I think the trick is to know which things are the ones that are actually go beyond just being a fad or a trend and are actually going to be seismic shifts in the way people live. And I think COVID has actually accelerated a lot of that because it's made us think more clearly about it. But I actually see that it permeates everything. If I just touch on one particular area, and that's guest rooms, because Tom mentioned that when he announced that Accor are sort of bringing wellness into the guest room. I think technology has a major play in guest rooms. Very clearly, we can see that there is a demand for wellness in guest rooms, but I don't actually think we know what it is. What, you know, people, you say, okay, we got a wellness room. Does that mean, okay, we've got a yoga teacher on the video, or does it mean we've got fantastic air quality, or does it mean we've got the latest in chromotherapy lighting? Who knows? What I can say is I look today. So the first thing I can say is there's absolutely definitely a demand. If you look at the stay well rooms that the Mirage Las Vegas has got, a king at the moment is selling at $55, but if it's a stay well king, it's $85 a night. And if you look at the Tampa Marriott, it's $199 if you take a regular room, and it's $224 if you take that same room. If you take that same room with stay well. So there's clearly a demand for it. And let's get in a premium. But I think what is it that people are seeking? And that's the big $1 million question: is what is it that they want? Is it multifunctional furniture, air quality, and so on? I ran a trial along with a hotel in Europe where we created a suite with a whole bunch of different things in there. And my goal was not actually to see what premium we would get. It was more to measure what guests favored mostly. And for me, I noticed one, it's multifunctional furniture they like. They want a good night's sleep. So anything that's going to promote a good night's sleep. And they appreciated, although it wasn't a conscious recognition at the time, but it was noticed completely when they left the room, is great air quality. And of course, I think, although they didn't mention it so much, I actually think light energy is tremendous as well, especially if you're focusing on sleep. So I've rambled on a little bit there, but I say technology is permeating every area.
But isn't there a threat with technology? Almost it's a double-edged sword, because on the one side, we've got this added experience for guests to engage with wellness. But on the other side, is there a risk of it taking away from the service being offered, because there are so many other wellness-orientated experiences that can be delivered via technology in the hotel? Right. Is there a threat or a risk?
Because the true, genuine wellness is humanity, and that is touch and communication and socialization. And whilst we may be having a difficulty now, people are suffering from a lack of all of those things. And that will come back with a tremendous force when we're allowed to engage in those activities fully again.
Andrew's exactly correct, because that's why our spas are full right now, is because even though people are afraid, they're going to spas because they believe that we're safe, and they believe they need that touch, that intimacy, and that feeling that they're part of the human race again. Well said.
Technology is just a support. If it's used well, it's a subconscious and subtle support for what's going on. But it can certainly improve. And one of the things that technology actually does is it collects data. It measures everything. So we can use that to better service our guests.
We are receiving some questions from the audience, and I'm just going to look at one or two of them to get the panel input. What do you think is the top driver to encourage guests in selecting a hotel for well-being? Tom,
Look,
sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's quite all right. And it's a good question to get asked that all the time. I mean, there has to be a safety confidence level. When I'm talking about safety, health, I mean hygiene, that they are certainly abiding by the minimum CDC standards, across globally. But then, the thing is, you may get them once, and I want to just digress a little bit to what Andrew and Ella were saying regarding the guest room, because it is the confidence in delivering on that guest room experience, whether it's sound, light, energy in that room. All those things are really important, because let's never forget and lose sight of why the guest is coming to you for a good night's sleep in a good bed in a good room. But today the new component is that wellness piece. How well am I going to be in that hotel and in that room? So I think, those things are really critically important. And I do believe also, that virtual reality and artificial intelligence today is at the forefront of everybody's discussion, because even wellness is very personal. You can't say the same thing to 100 people about a wellness journey, because it is their journey. And how we integrate artificial intelligence into understanding who that consumer is and what he or she wants when they come to it to stay with you, the better off you'll be able to extend that personal experience for them at every single level. So, for coming into a hotel, it's really that, look, it's a reputation of delivery on that. It goes above and beyond the promise. It's on the delivery of that promise and exceeding the expectation of the consumer. So as I may have mentioned earlier, it's under-promising and exceeding that expectation to the consumer when they come, and they'll be the best ambassadors for you. I promise you that.
And I'd like to say in this particular time, people are looking for genuine hospitality, people who are friendly, people who are respectful, people who are warm and really care and are able to personalize and connect with each guest. And that doesn't cost you anything except a good hire and some good training. And so, I mean, that's one of the things that we're blessed with, because the culture in where we are, but it's something that can be trained as long as you select the right people. And that human touch is or it can be toxic. And people, to Susie's point, our employees and our guests are highly stressed. They're coming in ready to chew somebody apart for lots of different reasons. And the more successful you are in talking them down and allowing them to enjoy your space, then you're going to be successful in having them come back and back and back again.
Build a smile.
I think what's important is the reputation and a consistent execution. When I think of where would I go for wellness, I wouldn't just go anywhere. I mean, Sea Island has a great reputation. Canyon Ranch has a great reputation. Six Senses, I would say, that they have a great reputation. And the reputation is earned over time, because whenever you go to these places, you find that they really understand wellness and it's infused in their culture. It's not just, nobody's going to attract me just because they have a certain facility or they come up with some marketing campaign. It's a consistent dedication to wellness by the entire company that eventually comes through, and then I think that makes a huge difference.
We have some other a number of questions relating to investment opportunities. We have even somebody in Bogota, Colombia, planning to build a boutique property. And how do we compare investment opportunities in hotel properties with compelling wellness? I'd just like to add here that what we see, and we create a lot of feasibility studies, investment plans, go out and search for investors, and also operator search as well. And so what we tend to see is that the retreat product, where there's a lot of focus on programs, is where the most attractive model actually is. And that's where, you are looking at, spending, depending on where you are in the world, in excess of, $1,000 a day that the guests will be spending on over a prolonged period. And, that may be guaranteed, double occupancy. And I think that's where we're seeing, a trend shift towards that. As we see more of these products come to market, I think the investment community is also gaining more confidence in these type of products. For those that are developing these type of assets and contemplating going to the market to raise capital, there has to be absolute clarity in the financial modeling and the conceptual plan in order to see any success. And remember, these type of products, can typically take a little bit longer to see a return, and you're looking for a very specific investor. And so the financial modeling and the proposition needs to be very distinct, needs to be very clear, and making sure that you're getting the product not mixed up with your traditional hotel with a spa and wellness in, if that is the case. But it's definitely the programming model where we see the largest shift and interest.
Yeah, and if I can add,
So
Roger, you're absolutely 100% correct. We recently opened a boutique, a 38 key retreat model on the West Coast in California. And one thing I would like to add, to that, because, a boutique operation cannot sustain itself with EFTs that are part of the operation. So the partnerships that one establishes to build your programs, if you can get into a market where you can tap into those professionals, where you can access those resources as and when needed to provide and deliver on the programming. Roger said it extremely well, and then the investor is just got to have patient capital, because the stabilization period is not your 2 to 3 years. You're probably looking at 3 to 7. Roger will know better with all these feasibility studies. But that model does work. It takes a longer time to stabilize, and your partnerships to manage your operating costs are critically important to get the operation.
Andrew?
Andrew, were you going to say something?
I thought you was about to say something, Andrew.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can't hear Andrew.
Okay, we can't hear Andrew. Okay.
now you can hear me. Now you can hear me.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So Roger, just to your point, I think that for investors, the first thing they've got to know is what market do they want to attract? Because the business model there's a lot of different business models out there, and if you put 10 consultants in the room, you'll get 10 different business models. So they really need to know what their customer mix is. If you're going to be just purely marketing towards only wellness guests, i.e. becoming a wellness resort, that's a very, very different model to if you are going to be a hotel that wants to attract wedding groups, meeting incentives, and different things like that. And that affects the size of the facilities, the type of facilities you build. The other thing I want to add is a lot of focus is actually on the facilities. What do we build? And then they don't take into account the operational costs, in particular, the labor costs. So if you've got expensive labor market and you need highly specialized people to run the programs that a consultant has advised that you should have, but they don't have to worry because they're not going to be there to operate it, and you've got extremely high labor costs, then your business model is going to have a very, very slow ramp up. So my advice to investors, first of all, know what market you're targeting first, and then find a consultant that can build that will meet that market.
Sure. I have been given, unfortunately, the 5-minute warning. I know this is a session that could go on all day long, and I have to bring it to, you know, a final question to you all. And you know, COVID-19 has accelerated, you know, society's engagement and demand for well-being and wellness in ways that we really couldn't have imagined. How do you see this tangibly translating into hotel wellness ROI in the future? Who would like to?
Well, I think I'll jump in real quick, because I'm going to just jump on what Andrew said there as well. I think it's really important to know your customer. You know, once you know your customer and what his or her expectations are, I think sometimes they try to do too much when it's not necessary. Focus on your customer. What are you looking for to deliver on that? I think, as I said and some of us said earlier on, I think there's going to be a new normal after this, whatever that looks like. I don't know. But I think if I could give advice to anybody who's really understand your customer, understand how you integrate that wellness spa / experience into your operation, what does it cost to do that, and how do I execute on that in a meaningful way that still has the ability to evolve as we get clarity on what the future looks like. The worst thing is a knee-jerk reaction. Get the right people in the room to ask the right questions, because, you know, I hear it all the time. Unfortunately, because it's changing so much, people don't know the right questions to ask. So, you know, get the hours, get the people in the room that really understand cost basis and revenue potential to drive your business on a sustainable basis.
Mm-hmm. Susie?
I would say that that in addition to looking at the fact that we're kind of all in the wellness business now, it's not in just some rooms. I think mental wellness is something that all of us need and will need more. So I think that's an area for people to look forward towards and be creative with.
Andrew?
So I think that we're actually in the state of not even contemplating post-COVID. We're in a state of survival. And I think that that is going to be a state that we're going to be in for quite some time. So in a state of adversity, creativity tends to succeed. And so, and we're seeing that. We see that with news articles of people that have been highly creative and have been successful. And I think Ella gave some really good summation of that, and how to know your customers and how to be creative, and how to, one simple thing, and it was just music to my ears when Ella said it, was one simple thing was have the fitness instructor talk to the massage therapist. Wow, wouldn't that actually be nice if it was a reality? My goodness, how simple. So creativity, I'm an optimist. I think that the current COVID situation has made people far more reflectful, far more appreciative of the need to be able to socialize, to be able to touch people, to be able to meet people, to be able to speak face to face. And I think that wellness has been far more in their mindset. And I think that bodes very well for the industry. And we just need to figure out ways of tapping into that and reassuring them that we can deliver.
Hello?
Yeah, hone your current assets, get them in a room together, figure out how you can better partner, market to that, and stay true to who you are as a brand. People came to you, you've been successful for a reason. Don't try to artificially become something else that doesn't stay in line with who you are and who you know, why your people still come to see you. There can be aspects that grow, but stay true to your brand.
Thank you, Ella. I came across a recent survey that was just released by health insurer Bupa Global. which I found fascinating. And their research, particularly on high net worth individuals and senior executives, was that they plan to improve their work-life balance after the pandemic. And 93% said that they were planning to take steps to change that balance. So, moving forward, I think that bodes well for what wellness will bring, to the hospitality sector. It is that time. I'm sorry, we've come to the end.
Just on that last point, Roger, having just
yeah.
moved from America to Sweden, I can certainly say the Americans could do with some of the Swedish approach to work-life balance.
Being an American, I agree with you.
I second.
Agree, but it's not practical.
I would really like to, say thank you and show my appreciation to Susie Ellis, Ella Kent, Andrew Gibson, and Thomas Klein. And also, I'd like to thank you all for joining the International Luxury Hotel Association webinar series. If you found the webinar to be of value, please do share the recording. Recordings of past webinars can be found on the ILHA website. That is the ilha.com under events. And we encourage you to register for the Inspire 2020 virtual conference, which will be taking place in December on the 14th and 15th, covering trends shaping the recovery of luxury hotels. I wish you all well, stay healthy. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Roger.
Stay well.
Bye-bye.